Hello, everyone. Dr. Eames here. This time, I'd like to talk to you about the differences between individualistic and collectivist cultures. Um, the author says that the most important cultural difference for understanding how people interact is understanding the difference between individualism and collectivism. And I really do agree with that. When we look at them in a very general way, you would say that uh, me first cultures are individualistic and us first cultures are collectivist. And this key point is really the difference that it's the heart of most culture clash when people just simply can't understand the life and universal views of other people. Um, when we look at individualism, we see that cutting the apron strings is one way that we show that we have looser ties, that our family units aren't quite as extended and they're not quite as powerful on us as in some places. Um, and this separation, cutting the apron string, saying that of a certain age, maybe it's time for you to go out on your own and get your own house and all of that. And these sort of loose ties result in a smaller family circle that we do see in our culture, particularly in America, because we are more or less individualistic. When we look at collectivist cultures, it's not really about cutting those apron strings at all. The ties are much tighter. People stay around through older age. Your family bonds are constantly reinforced and strengthened. And like I've said before, women in all cultures tend to feel much more collectivist than they do individualist. Um, so what we see is that in these us first cultures, the family bonds become very strong over time. And remember, of course, that these are just generalizations. Um, it has something to do with the way we look at the world and interpret that reality around us. And there are other nuances of this. For instance, context. Well, when it comes to context, we're really talking about what is the importance of the immediate environment to most things that we do in life? Is it really important? Is it high context? Or is maybe the context of what we do everything in not so important? Well, it just so happens that low context um, countries, good examples are the US and Canada. We tend to feel that maybe the setting isn't as important. The ceremony is not as important. It ought to be more about the facts and the reporting and the task at hand, where we are in a minority of thought there and action. Most of the world is high context, where the setting does matter, who's there matters, and who's not there matters, and so forth. And so, good examples of that are Japan and Mexico. Um, and then, when it comes to individualism, well, certainly as individuals, we are raised with a certain amount of pressure to achieve and so forth. So, we value that individual achievement and we look for it. And quite often we do share the glory with our immediate family and peers and so forth, but it's a smaller group. Um, in a collectivist society, if one member of any kind of extended network achieves something really noteworthy, then that glory and achievement is really trumpeted and shared by everyone within the group. This also leads us to talk about masculinity versus femininity. And these are really just a conceptual way to look at values. They don't have anything to do with being male or female necessarily. They're more about the way you approach things and style. So, feminine values tend to be more collectivist. And certainly, I've said that women in all cultures tend to be more collectivist. They also tend to have that more external locus of control, saying it's kind of out of my control what happens to me. And this is because of powerful gender roles in so many cultures. So, feminine values, when we look at them, are values that we do really do value. People first, connecting, cooperating, like it says here, but it's about maintaining and establishing rapport, about maintaining and establishing networks over time, support networks, and so forth. Masculine values are quite different. They do tend to be more individualistic, more about achievement, and much about competition and so forth. And they do tend to really gravitate towards material sorts of things. versus more conceptual things like cooperating with people and getting along. Sometimes masculine values are more about how many toys you have, honestly. And so those are sort of hallmarks in a general sort of way of individualistic cultures. Well, that's all I want to talk about this time, folks. I'll talk to you again soon.